Hey guys, it's Penguin here and welcome back to another gold making video. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at 5 super beginner friendly old world markets that you should be selling and getting into in patch 10.2 if you haven't already. I've heard a lot of beginners say that they are struggling with the new, Dragonflight profession system, or some people are just not enjoying it, which is why I really want to highlight some of these old world markets that don't require Dragonflight at all, but these are bringing in stable gold, especially for beginners. Now, trust me, if I talked about every single old world item that is doing spectacular right now, it would probably be about a 2-hour long video, so I've tried to condense this into 5 markets that not only are very cheap to get into, but they're providing stable gold, and it kind of applies to a wide range of professions to make sure there's an even spread for everybody. At the end of this video, I'm going to be giving additional tips, as well as a rapid fire kind of honorable mention section that has a lot more items, so if you are crafting these or you're looking for something else, that can help you as well. Also, if you guys want a part 2, feel free to let me know. But without further ado, we're going to dive right in, and I hope you enjoy. And so to start out strong, the first profession that I actually want to mention is engineering. Now, when you hear old world engineering, a lot of people probably go to a specific few items, but I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball, and I want to talk about big iron bombs as well as standard scopes. Many of you might be wondering why I'm choosing these items, and as you'll see, the very big pro of these items is that they're pretty fast selling, and they are super cheap to produce. So if you are a brand new gold maker, this is a perfect market for you. Now, of course, there's always a con to every item, and probably the biggest con of this section is that engineering is probably one of the more expensive, old world professions to level, but it's really not too bad. In order to unlock both of these items, you need to level your vanilla engineering to level 190. I will have a leveling resource in the description down below. It should link you to exactly what you need, and if you take a look at the materials list, which I'll also have on screen, it's really not that bad, and the list that you see is actually all the way to 300, so you can actually save a lot of gold by only going to 190. But once you have classic engineering leveled up, you can just unlock the recipes at the trainer, and then you are good to go. If we take a look at the current standard scopes, keep in mind that this is the NA region, so it might change on EU, it also will just change over time, but currently a crafting cost for a standard scope is about 22 gold, and I can make about 15 to 20 gold profit per scope, so I'm almost doubling my income per item I sell. Of course, 20 gold is not a lot, but like I said, the crafting cost is super cheap, so this is really great for beginners. I actually restocked these right before I started recording, and I will have a photo on screen of all of the standard scopes that have already sold. So this is a great item to really just get your foot into gold making. Now with big iron bombs, I will say there's probably a little bit more competition. Keep in mind these are both region-wide markets, so there is going to be higher competition, but the margin is also a lot better. Currently on the NA region, the crafting cost is 17 gold, and I'm selling them for about 90 to 100 gold a piece. At one point in time, I even sold them for 135. So this margin is a lot higher, but I tend to find a lot more competition on this item. Either way, they're really great items. I highly recommend just crafting a bunch in bulk one day, throw them up on the auction house, and then just let them sell over time. Great way to bring in some extra starting income. The second category that I want to mention is specialized cloth. This of course comes from tailoring, and the items that I really want to highlight actually come from outland tailoring as well as vanilla. There are 4 different types of cloth that I want to talk about, but there's going to be really 2 that outshine the others, but I think all of them are ultimately worth getting if you have the gold and time. The 2 main cloth that I want to mention is Primal Moon Cloth as well as Spell Cloth, and these are both just craftable reagents through tailoring. They're used in a variety of old world crafting like transmog, etc., so these actually have a pretty decent sell rate. Now, both of these items require level 50 outland tailoring, which is super easy to get. Like I said, I'll have it linked down below, but it's really going to cost you about 250 netherweave cloth to level up, which netherweave cloth is literally pennies. It's super, super cheap, so you should be able to level this profession, no issues at all. Once you have your outland tailoring to 50, what you'll have to do is actually go and buy these recipes from a vendor. I will say, a huge warning, technically you can buy these recipes off the auction house as they're not soulbound, but just please take the time to go to the vendor. Do not overpay for these items. For example, the primal mooncloth right now is like 1,000 gold on the auction house on NA on average, but it's 4 gold at the vendor. So please go to the vendor. I'll have the locations in the description. You really just have to go to Old World Dalaran, so go pick up the recipes and then you're good to go. Now, in terms of crafting costs, they are slightly more expensive. For example, the primal mooncloth cost about 190 gold a piece, and that's because they utilize primals, but the profit margins are also super good. Keep in mind these are stackable crafting reagents, so they are region-wide, a little bit more competition, but I am basically doubling my money. Crafting cost is about 190 gold, and I'm currently selling for about 330 gold a piece. Now, the third cloth that I want to mention is shadow cloth. This actually comes from level 50 outland tailoring as well, so you might as well just pick it up. I will say the profit varies a lot more. Currently, it's actually unprofitable, but sometimes it actually does go into profit and I can make a decent amount. So I highly recommend still picking up. It's just a lot more volatile. Then lastly, we have the normal standard mooncloth. This actually requires level 250 vanilla tailoring, so you're going to have to do a little bit more leveling, but like I said, vanilla tailoring is actually very, very cheap. Just like outland tailoring, it might cost you a little bit more, but it's still very, very simple. Once you have your tailoring up, all you need to do is take a trip to Winterspring, which is north of Orgrimmar, and you can pick up the recipe for yet again, super, super cheap. Please don't buy it off the auction house. This one, yet again, is a little bit more volatile, but when it is profitable, it sells really, really well. And yet again, just remember these are region-wide items because they're stackable reagents, so they're going to have slightly more competition compared to other items on this list, but they are highly worth getting into. The last thing that I want to mention, and probably the biggest con, is that you actually have to travel in order to craft these. You need to go to a moonwell in order to craft both versions of the mooncloth. If you're Horde, there's one right above Orgrimmar, so it's actually really easy to get to. Alliance, I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure what your closest one is, but that just requires a little bit of traveling out of your way, but it's kind of like a Dragonflight crafting station. At this point, we're kind of used to having to go somewhere to craft. For the spell cloth, you actually need to go into Outland and make your way to Netherstorm. Personally, I just take a flight path to Area 52, but anywhere in Netherstorm works. And then lastly, for Shadow Cloth, you actually have to go into Outland once again, but go to Shadow Moon Valley in a specific altar, which will have the coordinates on screen, and that's where you can craft that one. So it can be a little bit of a pain to craft these, but if you have the time and they're making a decent profit, I think it's definitely worth it. Moving on, the third profession that I want to mention is Enchanting. Now, sadly, with the region-wide auction house, Enchanting in total as like an old world profession has fallen a little bit just because old world enchants have kind of taken a dive, but what I want to highlight is actually server-specific items, and this is the Tome of Illusions. Now, I've actually talked about these items before if you guys have seen my older videos, but the reason why I want to bring them up again is that they've gotten very, very cheap because old world items have also gotten very, very cheap. So a lot of people might have actually stayed clear of these items previously due to their crafting cost, but nowadays they're actually extremely accessible. Secondly, another pro is that because these are all different cosmetics, if you guys aren't familiar with Tomes of Illusions, there's basically one for every single old world expansion, and these give you a variety of cosmetic looks. So people tend to buy them in bulk. So that just leads to a lot more sales. So if somebody needs the Tome of Illusion from Northrend, they also might pick up the Cataclysm one, which is just more money for you. Now, that kind of leads in to the biggest con, which means if you want to craft every single, Tome of Illusion, you're going to have to level that specific expansion of Enchanting. For this video, for sake of time, I'm only going to talk about the Northrend one, but it basically applies to all of them. You can find the exact information on Wowhead, but for example, the Northrend Tome of Illusion requires Northrend Enchanting level 50. If we take a look on how much it costs to level up, it's actually pretty cheap. You only need a bit of Infinite Dust and Essence and some other things. Like I said, you only need to get to 50, you don't have to max it out, but I would still say it's a worthwhile investment. To give you an idea of prices, right now the Northrend Tome costs me 255 gold to craft. Like I said, they've gotten very, very cheap, and these are server specific, so you're gonna have to check your realm, but on my realm, I sell them for about 3,000 gold a piece. So I am on a medium pop realm, I generally have higher prices. The region market average is about 2k instead of 3k, so even so, with the 255 gold crafting cost, 2k is still very decent margins. And just in case you're a beginner out there struggling for cash, Cataclysm right now is actually the cheapest to produce, while Outland is the most expensive at about 2k gold. So if you're trying to stay away from the high-priced items, don't go for the Outland Tome of Illusion. Now, the fourth market that I want to talk about is a little bit more specific, and if you are a fresh WoW player, you might not be able to take advantage of this super quickly, but if you are just a returning player or somebody who has played the game but hasn't done a ton of gold making, this is a perfect market for you, and this is actually Shadowlands Legendaries. Still to this point, which is currently 10.2, not a lot of people know that the old Shadowlands Legendaries have actually turned into transmoggable items. So yes, they're not used in the meta anymore, but people still buy them for their appearances. So if you are an old legendary crafter, or you are somebody who, has access to Shadowlands professions, this is a really, really great market. Also, to the people who did play during Shadowlands, they may know that there are different ranks of these legendaries, but you only need to craft rank 1 because that's the cheapest and it doesn't have any sort of appearance difference. So if you guys do want to get into this market, only craft rank 1s and they do great. Yet again, since it is armor, people buy in bulk, so that's probably the biggest pro. If it's a cloth wearer, if you want some sort of appearance, you're probably buying the whole set, so that's just more gold for you, and it's a really, really great market. Now, let me clarify, if you are a beginner, you can still get into this market pretty easily. However, it just requires a little bit of questing. So it's not as simple as just leveling up a profession and buying it from a vendor or something. You gotta do a little bit of questing, which just means it takes time. So if you got the time, I highly recommend it, but especially for people who have already done Shadowlands stuff in the past, definitely don't forget about these legendaries. And this is for all armor professions. So blacksmiths, tailoring, and leatherworking, go out there and make this armor. And lastly, the category that you guys have all been waiting for. It's a meme at this point since I talk about it so much on this channel, but I talk about it so much because I truly mean it. I think it's a market that a lot of people ignore even though they shouldn't, and this is old world bags. And when I say old world bags, I literally mean basically almost every single old bag that's not Dragonflight. This is the Shrouded Cloth bags from Shadowlands. This is the Deep Sea bags from BFA. This is the Hexweave bags from Draenor. This is the Frostweave bags from Northrend. This is the Netherweave bags from Outland. Whatever sort of bags you can craft, 90% of them do super, super well. Now, I say this in every video because a lot of people question Penguin. Why in the world would somebody spend 300 gold on an old bag that's less slots or even the same slots as current bags that only go for 50 gold? And I don't have the exact answer, but I have a few pretty good theories. Firstly, it comes down to convenience as well as routine. For example, think back to the last time that you made an ult. Maybe it's an ult that you made a few years ago because you now have a gold making mindset, but think about the last time you made an ult. Did you go to the auction house and scan through every single bag to find the best deal, or did you just look up a bag name that you're familiar with? Personally, I know way before I was a gold maker, I used to just buy netherweave bags because that's what I always bought. Was it the biggest bag? No. Was it the most expensive? No. Could I have probably gotten a better deal if I just bought, the highest slot bag? Probably. But it was just an average routine to go to the auction house, pick up my netherweave bags, and start questing. This same routine happens for a lot of people, especially if they've taken a break. For example, if the last expansion that you played was Shadowlands, you either have some shrouded cloth bags in your inventory, maybe you had the bigger, lightless silk version, but whichever you did, you probably had some old bags. So nowadays, if you go and make an ult, you remember the fact that there are shrouded cloth bags, and that's what you look for, and then you buy it. Many people don't sit there and, look at every single bag and try to find the best one, which is why you just want to sell them all. Once again, these are non-stackable, so it's going to come down to your server, but a lot of current content bags actually do really bad on a lot of full pop servers, while the old bags actually do very, very well because of how many people ignore them. Now, besides the bags that I kind of listed off during those examples, the only two special bags that I want to highlight is the Hydral Expedition bag, as well as the Otherworldly bags. These bags are special because they are actually profession-based bags. So for example, the Hydral Expedition is a bag strictly for herbs, and its slot is 36. So a lot of, people are dealing with alchemy with a lot of herbs, or people who just do herbalism are going to buy these bags. So these do strikingly well. So if you kind of want to highlight those specific bags, I highly recommend going and getting those. But in general, all bags do well. But with that being said, that is kind of it for my main categories. Now, to people who are looking for some extra items, maybe you already craft a ton of these, or some of these aren't doing very well on your server, I'm going to give you a rapid fire list that you can look into yourself. For engineers, I highly recommend looking into auto hammers and gun shoes. These do come from Legion. They're a little bit more of a pain to unlock because you have to do a profession questline, but these generally do pretty well on the region-wide market. You can also look into advanced target dummies. This is not Legion specific, and these actually do great as well. Also, remember that there's a ton of transmog. I just talked about, legendaries from Shadowlands, but basic t-shirts from Vanilla Tailoring do super well for me. You also have popular items like Warbear Woolies from Leatherworking, as well as the Blazing Rapier from Blacksmithing. If you guys are interested in transmog more specific items, I do have a very, very old playlist. It's actually the first ever videos I uploaded of WoW content. So it's very, very old. I will admit it's not the best quality video, but the content there is still really great. I'll have that playlist linked down below, but it has, 5-minute videos about how to get the Blazing Rapier, how to get the Warbear Woolies, etc. So if you're interested in transmog, I highly recommend it. Lastly, don't forget about vendor items. On the topic of beginners, a lot of people make a ton of gold by simply reselling vendor items, and that comes down to laziness. A lot of people forget to pick up a blacksmithing hammer, or maybe they accidentally got rid of it and they need one, and instead of going to a blacksmith, vendor, they decide to go onto the auction house and buy it for a few gold. So if you have some time, go around, pick up some vendor items, even vendor materials, and resell them for a profit on the auction house. Laziness is definitely an amazing moneymaker. But everybody, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully some of these things can help you out. Are standard scopes going to make you a millionaire on their own? Probably not, but these can provide you some really good, cheap starting income to eventually make that million. So even though these might be small stable income is way better than no income at all. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and have a good day.